Thank you, Rhonda. It's my pleasure to introduce Tara Crawford. She's a talented California-based search angel, and she brings years of genealogical experience, formal education through Boston University's Genealogical Principles program, and a heartfelt passion for helping others uncover their biological truth. Her journey began with her own family mystery, and she has since become a respected educator and one of the most watched content creators on the YouTube channel. Please welcome Tara Crawford.
That's a fantastic introduction.
Sorry, my computer went down. Hello, so happy to be here. I am Tara Crawford. Thank you, Linda, for the introduction. So before we get started, I do definitely want to acknowledge that sometimes there can be a lot of emotions tied into anyone who has recently discovered a DNA surprise. And that's where we come in, DNAngels. So whether you've taken an ancestry DNA test or you're thinking about it or you're just here to learn, I'm so glad you're here. So my name is Tara Crawford. I am based out of North County, San Diego, but I was born in Santa Clara County. So I am happy to be here with you all. What we're going to be talking about today is what happens when DNA tells a different story than the one that we grew up believing. Let me move this slide over. Okay, so who is DNAngels? We are a nonprofit 501c3. We rely strictly on donations and we are ran strictly by volunteers. We began operating in 2019, and since then, we have helped thousands of people. And to be exact, we have over 7,800 cases solved. We are a free genetic genealogy-based company, so we do not charge to discover a biological parent. We do offer some fee-based searches, but if you are discovering or trying to identify a biological parent, we do not charge for that. All of our volunteers here have also received expert research training. And also we come with a compassion first approach because a DNA surprise can really rock somebody's world emotionally. And a lot of our volunteers have experienced that themselves. So what our mission is, we help adults, adoptees, donor-conceived individuals, NPEs, which is a non-parent expected, identify their biological family using a technique called genetic genealogy. And it's especially through DNA test interpretation. So one thing that I like to say is we always follow the DNA instead of the family stories. So we believe that everyone deserves to know who they are and where they come from. We also emphasize that the medical and identity benefits of knowing one's biological background is very important. We use volunteer-based search angels, and the cases are assigned to us as they come in. And we also provide emotional and technical support, including resources on how to reach out to biological family members. We provide letters, coaching. We do have a fee-based liaison service that we offer, and we have a pretty quick intake process. It's pretty fast, and for many clients, cases resolve very quickly. Some resolve in same day, but some might take a little bit longer. All right, so let's talk about a DNA surprise. What is a DNA surprise? Well, a DNA surprise happens when someone takes a DNA test and receives results that don't match what they've always believed about their biological family. This can include unexpected relatives, missing expected relatives, or just unexpected ancestry. These surprises are more common than many people realize, and they usually stem from natural parts of family history that were never talked about or that no one just knew. So discovering just family secrets even is what we consider a DNA surprise. Now, why DNA surprises happen? At-home DNA testing is huge. Hidden adoptions or affairs, sperm or egg donor secrecy, especially in the pre-1990s. Secrecy was very common in past generations. Social expectations were strict, and families often hid pregnancies, adoptions, or parentage just to avoid judgment. Most they were not acting out of malice. They really believed that they were protecting someone, whether it was the child, the mother, or the family, just from stigma or a hardship. Context does matter because their choices reflected the limited options and pressures of the time. It humanizes their decisions. So behind every secret was a real person trying to navigate difficult circumstances. And we definitely want to reassure our clients by seeking the truth today. It is actually very healthy and it helps complete a story that earlier generations could not tell. All right, so we're going to get into some of the DNA basics and how it works. You receive 50% of your DNA from your mother and 50% from your father. However, your parents received their DNA from their parents, so you are a product of all four of your grandparents. The segments of DNA passed down, they are a random mix, meaning siblings can have different combinations of DNA from the same grandparents. This is why two siblings can take a test and their ethnicity will not be exactly the same, even though they share two parents. I like to picture it as opening a bag of Skittles and just throwing it on the table. One of you might get more yellow and the other might get more orange. It does not mean that you're not full siblings because you definitely are. It's just random distribution when it comes to DNA. Um, Grandparents also, their distribution is, it's not always going to be equal amounts when they pass down to their children. But 10% of third cousins, when you are looking at your DNA list, this is another pretty important thing. You guys might not share enough DNA to show up as a match. It does not mean that you're not third cousins, you are, but as we travel down the generations, less and less DNA is passed down. Where our DNA data comes from, there are different sites and they all offer something different. So Ancestry DNA, this is our largest match database. If anyone is searching for biological family, we will always recommend that you test at ancestry.com first. They have the biggest database for using genealogy searches. The records are there. You can build your trees. You can add your DNA matches to your tree. But the weakness is there is no chromosome browser. They do have some pretty amazing tools that you can add on. Under Pro Tools, for example, you can see how your other matches match each other, which is really good information when you are trying to identify who a DNA match is. 23andMe, this is the second largest database. They are known for health reports. They also have a chromosome browser. This is when you can kind of compare your chromosome browser with your matches and determine on which chromosome you share DNA on. The weakness is they are a smaller match database. They also do not have any family tree building access. So figuring out who your match is can definitely be a challenge. MyHeritage, they are great for international matches. If you descend from recent immigration, MyHeritage is very popular in Europe and outside the US. Um, they have clustering techniques, so different tools where you can actually cluster your DNA matches and create a visual. But the weakness is their interface and use can be confusing. They also have a chromosome browser as well, where you can compare where you guys match on the same line. Now, family tree DNA, their strength is they have the Y-DNA database and the MT, which is mitochondrial DNA testing. They have a very small autosomal database, which autosomal is what we're getting on Ancestry, 23andMe, and MyHeritage. Now, the difference between autosomal and the Y and mitochondrial, Y-DNA testing is for males only. When we are assigned, we each are going to receive either a Y chromosome for males or X for females. That Y chromosome never ever changes. It's passed down for generations. It stays the same. So for men that are trying to determine their paternal line, you can take a Y DNA test and hopefully help break down some walls with that. Women cannot take that Y DNA test because we do not carry any Y DNA. However, mitochondrial DNA testing is going to trace your maternal line going back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Males can take the mitochondrial DNA testing because they also carry the X chromosome, where females get double X. So when you want to take that test, you are tracing your maternal line. Now, you cannot build trees with your Y matches or your mitochondrial. It's a little bit different, but there are different family groups. So for example, I wanted to kind of dig a little bit further on my father's line. He's deceased, but he has a brother and they share a father. So I tested his brother and I was able to confirm that our last name is Crawford because we traced down that Crawford Y line. So that is an example of using Y DNA in order to determine what is your paternal lineage. Now, GEDmatch, this is a website. It is very hard to read if you're not familiar with their reports. However, they allow free uploads, and so does Family Tree DNA. So if you have tested on Ancestry, you can download your raw DNA to your personal computer and you can upload for free to GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. What you will find on GEDmatch, because they do not sell kits, it is strictly uploads. If you have a family member that has tested on 23andMe and you have tested on Ancestry.com and you would like to compare your results, both of you can upload to GEDmatch and see how much DNA you guys share with each other. The weakness is matches are not always active users because they uploaded and they never returned. GEDmatch is also the website that law enforcement uses. So you will, they will ask you if you would like to participate in law enforcement searches. If you choose not to, you can opt out of that as well. That is the main website that law enforcement is currently using. Ancestry.com does not work with law enforcement. All right, so let's talk about interpreting our DNA matches. A lot of times when you take an Ancestry DNA test, you are given a label. And I have shared my aunt right up there. And you'll see that it is showing her as either she could be my aunt or she's my half sister. The reason for that is because we share the same amount of DNA with our aunts as we do our half sisters. So that's where it can be very confusing for people. You'll see maybe, and if you're in any DNA Facebook groups, someone will come on there and say, my grandchild is listed as my half sister. Well, it's only a label. It doesn't mean it's accurate. It's because grandparents also share the same amount of DNA. So, centimorgans, right there in my example, it says I share 1,816 centimorgans with my aunt. That is my aunt. Centimorgans are, it's a unit of measurements used in DNA testing to show how much genetic material two people share. The more shared centimorgans you have equals the closer the relationship. The fewer shared centimorgans that you have equals the more distant relationship. Because DNA is inherited in predictable patterns. So the total amount of shared centimorgans can help estimate how two people are related. Now, there is a tool online. The website is called DNA Painter. They have a shared centimorgan tool. It is free. You can go in there and type in the amount of shared centimorgans you have with your DNA match. It will give you multiple ways that you could be related. You have to do the work to determine which is the correct one. So you guys definitely have to be aware. There is no set amount of DNA that's going to be exactly right, but there is a range. So I have a first cousin that I share 650 centimorgans with, but I have another first cousin that I share 900 centimorgans with. They're both equally my first cousins. I just happen to share more DNA with the second one than I do the first one. But the range and the amount of DNA that I share with him is within the first cousin range. So therefore, they're both my first cousins. So that part can be very confusing for people. When you log into your Ancestry account and it has a label there of a possible relationship, it does not mean it's correct. You have to do the detective work yourself to figure out what is that actual relationship. Things that you want to look for is, do they have a family tree? You know, I love clicking on family trees. If they've got good ones, I search for a common surname and see who I recognize so that I can then determine what side of the family they're on and how could we possibly be related. Okay, next step is, what is DNA clustering? DNA clustering is, it groups your DNA matches into clusters based on how they match each other. It reveals your paternal and maternal family lines. It helps identify biological parents and ancestors. It simplifies the match list for an NPE, which is non-parent expected, adoption, and genealogy cases. We use shared matches to uncover the common ancestor behind each group. So why this works, the DNA clustering, is you inherit 50% from each parent. And those parents, they're going to inherit from their parents and so on. So because of this, matches from your father's side tend to match each other. That would be your paternal cluster. Matches from your mother's side tend to match each other. That would be your maternal cluster. Matches who do not match across both groups, those are going to separate your ancestor lines. So clusters reveal a paternal side versus a maternal side, which grandparent line somebody belongs to, and which ancestor connects everyone in that cluster. That's where clustering helps us identify biological parents. So if we know someone's looking for a father, they already know who their mother is. We will identify that mother's side, and then whoever is not on that group is going to be your paternal side. So clustering is going to be key when you are trying to identify a DNA mystery or just how you are related to your other DNA matches. All right, shared matches and building those family trees. We want to go to our shared matches. I don't know why that is blowing up like that. I probably tried to do something that didn't work out. But We're zooming in here. Um, when you've taken an ancestry test and you want to identify who this common ancestor is with, well, right there, you're going to look at your shared matches. So on my aunt, when I click shared matches, I am only going to get my maternal side because she is from my maternal side. So all my shared matches in common with her is my maternal side. Anybody that does not belong in that group of shared matches will be my paternal side. How can we identify how we're related? Well, hopefully your matches have family trees. If they do not, that's where your detective work comes in as well. You want to take whatever identifying information that they have and build out that tree yourself. So what if you've taken an ancestry DNA test and you want to identify who your matches are, just a little tip is you can create a research tree. You want to keep it private so that nobody can see it, and you can build out the matches that they're trees. And you can do that work on your very own. I just recommend that you keep that tree private. So shared DNA matches, they show people who appear on both your match list and someone else's match list. That's where the Pro Tools comes in. I can tell who my matches share DNA with as long as it's a match in common with me. Groups of shared matches point to the same family line, maternal or paternal. Building out shared matches trees help identify repeating ancestors. Patterns across multiple trees lead to the likely common ancestor. When you find a match and you click shared matches, all of those matches definitely descend from the same ancestor. Who that is, that's where the detective work comes in. All right, so we have done a case study that I am going to share with you. This is a real case. A client came to us. They were seeking answers about their maternal grandparents. Her mother had been left on a doorstep in California in 1924 as a brand new infant. She was about 2 months old. She had no identifying information besides a first name, and a gold ring was left with her. Because her mother is now deceased, the baby that was left on the doorstep is deceased. There's no documents, there are no family stories, and the only thing that we had to work with was our client's own DNA. That was the starting point to identify who her grandparents were. So, normally we do a lot of parent search cases, but this is going to be a grandparent search. So the very first thing that we do, we have no information to go off of. The only thing that we have is the DNA of the client. Now, since we want to figure out who our client's grandparents were, who left her mother on a doorstep in 1924 as an infant, we need to identify great grandparents. So the very first step when I talked about clustering is we need to sort and we need to organize the client's DNA matches into meaningful groups. I like to use the Dana Leeds method. There are plenty of YouTube videos online to explain to you this process. She has her own website. She's on Facebook. I've been using the Dana Leeds method for many years, and it's very simple. It's very easy to follow. But that's going to be my first step when I need to sort my DNA matches into their clusters. It's a proven technique for clustering matches. It's strictly based on shared DNA. This approach helps identify which matches belong to the same ancestral lines. By color coding and grouping these matches, we were able to separate her maternal DNA connections into distinct clusters, giving us a clearer starting point for identifying her mother's biological family. Now, when you're using the Dana Leeds method, She teaches it as you start by focusing on your matches that are between 90 centimorgans and 400 centimorgans. Yes, you have matches that are closer, but when you're in this range, we know that we're going to at least share a great grandparent. And I want to identify these great grandparents first before I plug in my closer matches. Now, what my little chart here says on my left, I make this out of Excel. Everybody in that yellow group comes from the same common ancestor. Everybody in that pink group comes from a different ancestor. Each line represents a grandparent line. So that's why I like to have my clear visual. I want to know who fits into my yellow group, and then I want to know who fits into my pink group because we are looking for a set of grandparents for our client. So each one of these is going to be her grandma, and one of these is going to be her grandpa. I do not know which one is which at this point, but this is how I'm going to start it. All right, so next step is I need to build out my matches trees to identify the common ancestor. And this is where my research tree comes in. I start with my matches that are in my yellow group. And one by one, I will build out their family tree. If they have a tree, that's amazing. If they don't, we have to do the work ourselves. And we need to determine who's who and where they fit in a tree. Now, right here in this screenshot, our yellow group has taken us to a family in this picture. And they are Sam and Harriet. Sam is born in 1879. Harriet is also born in 1879. They are based out of Utah. Now, our baby was born and left in California, but our family has led us to Utah. I know that I'm related to Sam, even though we do have more matches. I just wanted to give you guys a picture of some basic matches. We can confirm Sam because we have a match at 227 centimorgans to Sam's brother. We can confirm Harriet because we have a match of 95 centimorgans that descends from Harriet's brother Joseph. Now, I want you guys to see the range here because even though they sit in the same part of the tree, one of them only shares 95 centimorgans while the other shares 227 centimorgans. It is the same family. They're in the same position on the tree, but this is an example of where the DNA range is not exact, but the relationship stays the same. So if we were referring to our shared centimorgan chart, both of these matches, we want to confirm the relationship falls into that range, and it would. Now, we have two groups, and they are united by marriage. So DNA match 227 is not going to match DNA match 95 centimorgans. They're two families. However, we can connect this family through a marriage or through children. That's Sam and Harriet. Now, our baby was born in 1924. So we have to also, as part of our investigation, is who would be old enough to have a child in 1924. Hazel's born in 1909. We have a match that descends from her. It's her grandchild at 294 centimorgans. That would be too low if Hazel was a parent. So we can eliminate Hazel also just based on her age. The next one, we have a great match to Foster. He's born in 1908. It's his child. But again, 1908, the year that would be not expected to be a parent. So we are left with two options. We don't know if it is Mary or Sam, but we will find out. So when we build multiple matches from the same cluster, the same ancestral line, it's going to point us towards a likely common ancestor. And this process allows us to narrow down which family branches could be connected to the client's maternal grandparents and ultimately helps guide us towards the correct lineage. So this is our couple. Another thing we want to look for is, can we find any proof of Mary or Sam going to California? And at this point in the search, we have not found any records of them being there. Not yet. All right, so now we've got our next group, our DNA cluster match of 2. It also connects to a couple, William and Elizabeth. They had 5 children. They're also in Utah. And based on our second cluster of matches, we know that William and Elizabeth are most likely our clients' great grandparents. And one of their children will be the second parent that we are looking for. Is it Mary? Is it Madge? Is it Alan? Is it Edgar? Is it Margarita? We don't know yet, but you can see that luckily for us, we've got a great pool of DNA matches. Out of their 5 children, 3 of them have taken an ancestry DNA test. Well, 3 of their descendants have taken an ancestry DNA test. It's not always this great, but we got very lucky. So now that we have identified the 2 distinct genetic networks, or our clusters, we've got cluster A, we've got cluster B. We now have to do the true detective work. Our goal is to determine how these 2 groups connect to each other. And ultimately, how do they connect to your parent or grandparent? So we're going to do this by asking key questions. Can we find a record linking the 2 families? We're going to be looking for marriage records, engagement announcements, church records, immigration or travel records, birth certificates showing parents from each cluster. We look for evidence that somebody from group A and someone from group B had a child together during the correct time period. Did the 2 families live near each other? They did. We locate them by using census records, city directories, property records, newspaper articles. When I'm looking for a connection, when you pull up Ancestry and it gives you the census record, I like to go forward 3 or 4 pages and backwards 3 or 4 pages, because in the early 1900s, people did not live too far from the people that they usually connected with. So sometimes you can find them living pretty close by just going back a few pages or going forward. Physical proximity often explains why 2 unrelated DNA networks come together, because people just didn't travel too far. It wasn't as easy as it was today. Did they share community ties? So is it the same workplace, same church or social club, same school or neighborhood? People in the 1920s commonly formed relationships through community life, making these clues extremely important. So can we rule out or confirm candidates based on age, geography, and family structure? Yes. This will help narrow down possibilities to the most likely couple. So the outcome here is we did not find any personal connections between these 2 groups. We are unable to confirm there's no marriage between these families. There's no proof of them even knowing each other when we're just strictly following a paper trail. So at this point, we turned to an online newspaper database. I knew the county, I knew the city of where this baby was left. We got so lucky because we got hits following the discovery of a baby being abandoned. The county had immediately began working to identify who the baby's parents might be. Their first and only clue was the name Vera. It was given at birth. They knew that because, as I had told you guys, there was a note left with her that her name was Vera, and they had an approximate birth month of April 1924. All of this was in the newspapers. And the only thing I did is I went into newspapers, I went to the city, and I searched baby abandoned, and I put that year in, and boom, I got all these newspaper articles. So what the officials did in this 1924 time is they sent a memo to the surrounding cities requesting assistance in locating any birth records that matched a baby Vera being born in April of 1924. And their efforts paid off because there was only one baby Vera that was born in the region that fit the timeline and the circumstances. And it documented a baby girl being born to a man named William, last initial C, and a mother, Mary Harriet, age 19. So Mary Harriet was one of the daughters that was in our first genetic group. Another thing that was determined, so once they had identified who the birth mother was, basically memories of people that had interacted with her began to surface. Her nurse that had attended the birth was interviewed and recalled the significant detail of this young mother. She had expressed her desire to travel back to Utah, but the nurse strongly advised against it, warning that travels so soon on an infant could endanger the baby's health. So this testimony combined with the matching birth certificate provided the county with the first concrete evidence pointing to the likely identity of the abandoned baby. And ultimately, this was our client's maternal origins. This was our client's grandmother and supposed grandfather. Now, this baby, the mother was notified and she was summoned back to the town, and she showed up. She was aware, but she did not come back to claim the baby. So we have now identified the mother. Her name is Mary. She is the daughter of Sam and Harriet from Utah. So you can see where Mary is. We have DNA matches connecting to her biological father, and we have DNA matches connecting to her mother through her mother's brother Joseph. So this is where it all comes together. And when we are solving cases, this is what we look for when we are identifying our clients. Do we have matches that match through their mother and through their father, but they don't match each other? So this is where it all comes together. We know Mary is our client's grandmother. All right, now let's talk about the father. So the newspaper article said William was listed as the father and the husband of Mary. However, our DNA evidence tells us a different story, because when we compared the client's DNA matches to William's family, it became very clear he cannot be the biological father. There were no genetic connections to his family, ruling him out as a possible paternal candidate. So instead, we had to turn our focus back to the second DNA genetic network that we had identified earlier. According to the shared centimorgan chart and the expected relationship ranges, one of the client's key matches falls into the range of a possible half-first cousin once removed. This is a highly informative match type because it strongly suggests the client's mother shares a father with the parent or the grandparent of that match. So in this image, we know that we are descending from William and his wife. but which one of their children? It's down, we're looking for a male, and they only have two options. We have Alan, born in 1901, and we have Edgar, born in 1902. And something that I want you to notice is the amount of shared DNA coming from Alan's grandchild compared to the amount of DNA coming from Edgar's great grandchild. So this is going to stand out to us. Um, Fortunately, the second DNA network, it is small, but it's well-defined family line with only the two sons. We got very lucky that both of these sons had tested. And based on the amount of shared DNA with Alan's granddaughter, Alan is most likely the biological father to our client's mother or our client's grandfather. So for this case, the combination of the absence of DNA matches to William C. We built out a family tree based off of the name that was provided on the birth certificate and the newspaper article, and there were no DNA matches connecting to that William. The strong match descendants of Alan, the expected relationship range right there would be a first cousin, a half first cousin, once removed. That's a half first cousin, actually, 492. And the limited number of male candidates, we only have two males to choose from. So all together makes Alan the most probable father of the client's mother. So Alan is not living today. We cannot test him, but since his descendants have tested, we can use that to determine who is our best candidate. Now, what was the relationship between Mary and Alan? We do not know. They both lived in the same area of Utah. There's no proof of them on records being together. But what we do know is when Mary was summoned to return, she did return posing as a single woman. She brought a man with her and said that he was her brother, but she was given the opportunity to meet with the lawyer who was caring for baby Vera, and she did not show up. We were able to trace the life of Mary, and she did go on and marry again. She lived a full life. She had one daughter who ended up passing away before her. But as far as we know, there are no mentions of baby Vera. It's almost like she just deleted her. But whatever her reasons were, we don't know. Was it fear, family pressure? This was in the 1920s, a social stigma, or just a personal circumstance. But basically, Mary left the county or Visalia, which is where this happened, and she never ever returned or looked back. So, in the meantime, though, this case at that time, it drew significant public interest, and because of that, it really helped us solve who left the baby on that doorstep. More than 60 families applied to adopt baby Vera. And in the end, she was adopted by a lawyer and his wife, because at the time, a baby who was a foundling could not be adopted out until 1 year had passed. They give the biological mother 1 year to come forward and claim their child. Vera's name and history was completely erased. Our client, once her mother was adopted by the lawyer, her name was changed. So the family did not know what her mother's name was at birth. They had no clue. All of it was discovered by using the traditional genetic genealogy. Now, there are challenges and some limitations when we are working with genetic genealogy. The first one is going to be endogamy. Endogamy means that people in the same community marry within the same group for generations. This creates a lot of shared DNA, making it appear much closer than they really are. People that come from small islands, they don't leave the island, so they tend to intermarry. Or people that come from groups that don't marry outside of their traditions, it's very common to have endogamy in that. The next challenge is going to be a pedigree collapse. A pedigree collapse happens when the same ancestors appear multiple times in a family tree. This will inflate shared DNA and can make relationships harder to pinpoint. We recently had a case of someone whose family came from Norway, and this family happened to marry within the community. And when we built his tree, it was like a web. Everyone was connecting to the same person. So separating those family lines can be a real challenge. Small family trees. So some families simply had fewer children or branches that just died out. So this will limit the number of relatives available to show up as DNA matches. If you look at your list and you don't have very many matches, it could be maybe you come from a small family, generations of 1 to 2 children that eventually end up not reproducing. Misattributed parentage. So sometimes when you are copying a tree of a match, DNA match, the person listed as their parent is not the biological parent. And that can be due to informal adoptions, secrecy, or just errors. This can shift what the match list appears to show. So if you have a close match and you're looking at their tree and it's just not lining up, it's probably that there could be a misattributed parent in that tree somewhere, and they might not even know about it. A limited match list. So not everyone from the client's genetic line has tested. So the pool of useful matches may be small. They don't always look like the ones that we got on the 1924 baby list. Communication points. So these challenges, they're very common and they're very normal. We work with them every day. Some cases can come together in days, while others takes weeks or months, or we have some that do end up going on a wait because we have to wait for closer matches to come in. Um, DNAngels, what we do is we will work collaboratively. So that case that I had from Norway, I was stuck, but I had some other angels and we worked on it together and we were able to solve it. When a case is complex, we can put multiple team members. They may analyze it and give the client the best outcome possible. All right, so supporting those that are affected. First of all, we have to acknowledge that shock and grief are normal reactions to unexpected DNA results. We get clients who take DNA tests and they have no idea. Um, they will reach out to us to help interpret their DNA matches because it's a shock. They have no matches connected to their father or who they think is their father. And then when we do the work and have to tell them that who they thought was their dad for the last 50 years is not, um, it's shock and grief is very normal. So recognize that identity disruptions, they can occur and they affect how people see themselves. Um, their whole identity can be taken from them at that very moment. So be aware of possible family conflict dynamics and offer supportive presence. We provide validation and empathy. So listening is key. We have support groups for people that need the extra support. We have a private Facebook group for our clients where the only way you get in is because you are a client of us and you can share your thoughts and feels with other people going through the same thing as you. We definitely know when to refer someone to therapy if needed. We love to navigate them in directions that might need additional support. And I like to say is just because we can find the answers, it does not mean we reveal it without care. The truth can be healing, but timing and delivery and how the information is given, it truly matters. All right, so I am going to open up the forum now if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you, Tara. There was a question. I think it might have been answered. So um, they wanted to clarify the type of testing that is available at Ancestry. Um, I think you answered it, but could you just repeat that so people are clear? The type of testing that does done at Ancestry and then also family tree DNA and all of the major testers actually.
Sure. So Ancestry is going to give you autosomal DNA. Autosomal DNA is what we are using to identify family lines. Autosomal DNA is passed down to you from your parents, from your grandparents, and beyond. Family tree DNA, they do allow autosomal uploads. They also sell their kits, but they also sell Y-DNA testing. That is your paternal line. It is only available to male testers. And you can also take a mitochondrial DNA test through them, which traces your maternal line, available to male and female testers. MyHeritage is an autosomal test, very similar to Ancestry, but they have a database that reaches into Europe. So they're more popular in Europe. And if you're searching outside the US, you might get lucky. If you come from recent immigration, your parents, your first generation, um, MyHeritage might help you get additional matches because that's going to be another challenge that I did not mention is if you come from recent immigration, your first generation, your matches are going to be much lower because commercial testing isn't as popular in certain areas of the world, like Mexico or South America. If you come from those areas, your pool of matches will be lower. 23andMe, they are autosomal DNA as well. However, they are offering health tests. So if you want to see what genes you're carrying or which could be a risk for, that company is who you want to test with. They are the second largest database. They do not have tree building access. So you cannot build family trees based off your 23andMe matches. That's going to happen at MyHeritage or Ancestry.com.
I just wanted to emphasize that family tree DNA is the only major tester that provides Y DNA testing right now, the male only testing.
That's right.
Okay, thanks.
So if you have a brother, his Y was received from dad and so on. So if you're trying to figure out a male line, you gotta find a direct male descendant.
Okay, so David has a question. He says, I'm male. Can I use mitochondrial DNA to find matches to a grandmother 7 generations back, or is that just too far?
It's very far. And now the mitochondrial DNA, it's going to give you a haplogroup of where you came from. So it goes back, it doesn't change. But as far as building the trees out for that, it's going to be the challenge. Remember, when you're building trees, we want to have the records to verify the person. So depending on how your family line is, if you come from a younger family, you might be able to verify your seventh great grandparent as long as we've got the records. But once in the US records, we're here in the genealogy group. So you know that once you get into those 1700s and beyond, it's a little limited on what you can find online.
That's sadly true.
Yes.
Okay, Barbara has a question. Family Tree has the smallest database. How successful are you in making connections using Family Tree DNA?
Now, because it's a free upload, we always ask our clients to upload just to see what's in the testing pool. I will say, honestly, I don't find a lot of success in family tree DNA for autosomal. It's always very low, but we put them out there just to see. You might get lucky.
Hmm. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. There's another question. Did I understand you correctly? You also help find parents and grandparents?
All right. Yeah. So no charge at all. If you're looking for a parent, no charge. If you're searching for a grandparent and we need to use your DNA, that is a paid service. So we don't do that free, but there's a way to get around it. If you're searching for a grandparent, um, you can have your parents test and they search
Mhm.
for the parent.
Oh,
Example, I just helped a man. His mom had passed away. But she took it and she was adopted, but she had taken an ancestry test. So even though she had passed away, we were able to determine who her father was because she tested before she had passed away.
sorry, my AirPod went dead.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I'm back. Okay, so I think David said we think we know who the seventh grandmother was, but we're not certain. We're looking for confirmation. So that was a follow-up to his question about using mitochondrial DNA to find someone that far back.
Okay, so to identify the exact ancestor using that process, it could be a challenge because the way mitochondrial is passed down, it's a little different. So like I get it from my mother, and then it's her mother, and then it's her mother, and it goes back that way. So it depends on the line that you're looking for.
If it's straight maternal, it
Yes.
might be okay. Yeah. Okay,
The way
good.
it's passed sounds a little different. But what you could do is on Ancestry, get your Ancestry DNA test on there, build out your tree. There is a tool called Through Lines where it will find other DNA matches that might descend from this same person. And that you might find them on your through lines. So the through lines isn't 100% sure, but if you know if you've got a few matches on there saying that they all descend from your seventh great grandmother, it might be facts. But one thing about Ancestry is they cut off the shared centimorgan match at I think it's 20 centimorgans. So anyone that matches less than 20 centimorgans with you, um, they're cut off on your
So they're not shown as a match.
right. You have to really search for them, but they pretty much cut it off.
Mm,
Because anything below 20 centimorgans, it's not a guarantee. It's
well,
so
yeah, that's pretty small.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Barbara says 23andMe had financial issues. How secure is your DNA using them? Do they sell your DNA?
So I didn't get too far into that, but here at DNAngels, we all held our DNA on there. So what I took from it is the company was sold. I have been told they do not sell your DNA, but I'm not 100% sure. I did not delete my kit. I want to stay on there.
Yeah, I think I have friends who tested there and most of them decided to stay, even though there
Mhm.
was some doubt.
There's some doubt,
Okay.
but what I do know is it was sold. And I
Yeah,
thought it was sold back to the original creator of 23andMe.
that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, Sally wants to know, did Vera ever contact her distant cousins that you discovered?
Yeah, so um well Vera passed away. So I was working with Vera's daughter and granddaughter.
Mm,
They made contact with the potential grandfathers, Alan. Alan's our dad, we think. They made contact with his granddaughter. That was the match where they shared about 490 centimorgans with, and she was really good about sharing information. Now, Mary, we did track down. She does have two living grandsons. However, they did not go forward with trying to make contact.
okay. Bobby wants to know, where did Vera's mother Mary stay or her reason for being in California from Utah?
We do not know why she was there. We don't even know why, because the newspaper article said she was summoned and she returned. but then she went back to Utah. So we don't know why she was in Utah, but she shortly returned to Utah, and then based off of the records, she moved to Chicago and married and stayed married to the same man till the day she died and lived out her life
Hmm.
there.
Okay. So Jeannie says that's very sad. Parents in her case are gone. Can you give her an idea of your approximate fee?
Oh, the grandparent searches is they charge 500 per grandparent to do a grandparent search.
So it's just a flat rate
Yeah.
charge. Oh, okay. Okay. So Jean wants to know, where do you look for surname testing groups? For example, a distant cousin who is now passed claims she connected via DNA three branches of a surname brothers who came to the US about 1780. What DNA groups are talking about this?
Okay, so I shared that I had tested my father's half brother because I was trying to figure out a mystery on that line. I want to know if we were Crawfords, family rumors, we weren't. So I own his kit, and the moment that my Y-DNA kit hit that family tree DNA, I was contacted by a group manager who manages the the Crawford kit DNA. And when you get in there, there's a whole list of Crawfords and the history. So that's how I got into that group. There is someone that manages these groups. So if your cousin had tested through Y, there is someone that manages these groups. So I belong to the Crawford Project.
And you can apply yourself for Family Tree DNA. They do have surname projects, so
Okay, yeah.
you can apply to join one if you have a surname match. Okay. Uh, this person, Mila says, 23andMe was bought by one of the original founders, so that's a
Okay,
confirmation
that's what
there.
I thought.
Yeah, so that's good. Okay. MyHeritage has a feature to find your cousins. Does this match your process of finding clusters?
Yes, so finding your cousins is the same thing as creating clusters. They're autosomal DNA and they give you a list just like Ancestry.com does. I know MyHeritage, so they used to allow free uploads and we could upload, but they're really pushing to build their database. And I know they've had some pretty major technology breakthroughs. So they're really pushing to sell kits. Last I checked, they were
Mhm.
$29. So I'd recommend just to take it because it's $29.
Yeah, that's a bargain these days.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bobby is sending a message, I think, to David. Research down the maternal mitochondrial line, if possible, and test various descendants of the maternal line.
Okay, good.
I,
I haven't taken that DNA test. So I honestly don't have a whole lot of experience with it. I know the lines it takes, but I haven't been too interested in my maternal side like I was my paternal.
mhm, yeah, okay. Um, okay, so sorry. Keep going. Who is the contact for DNA Angels?
All
Or
right.
how can they contact DNA Angels?
You go to our website, DNA. It's very tricky. So it's DNA Angels, but there's only one A in there. So DNA, and then you spell angels.org. DNAangels.org. If you're looking for a search angel, you just go straight to our website. You can apply. And then we have intake that will reach out to you and get you started. You explain to them what you're looking for. They'll take a glance at your matches and see if you're someone that we can accept.
Okay, good. And then Barbara's saying that MyHeritage no longer allows uploads. I think that's true, but Family Tree DNA does allow
Mhm.
uh, your ancestry uploads.
Yeah,
Okay,
as far as I'm aware, it's just Family Tree and GEDmatch where you can do free.
right. I think GEDmatch is a good idea because it doesn't matter where people have tested.
Hmm.
So you can load your DNA and get onto DNA sorry, GEDmatch, and
GEDmatch.
get a broader possible pool to match
Yeah.
with.
If we have like a family group, identified, but we need more testing. We call them target testers. We'll have our clients reach out to family members that we find by building trees. And let's say they've tested on 23andMe and we want to compare, then we get the client to upload the GenMatch. We get the target tester to get up on a GenMatch and we can compare it there.
Exactly. I found a lot of new cousins that way.
Yeah. And it's free.
It's free. It's amazing. MyHeritage is doing the whole genome, and the kit is only $29. Just don't send the kit back to them until after January 1st. That's true.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah. So I bought several kits when it was $29, and I'm waiting till January. So I have big plans.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That was from Betsy. Okay. So she's asking DNAngels.org. Yes, I typed it in the chat also. So that's the contact.
Yep.
Okay, great. Any other questions anyone has or things to share? Okay.
Before we go, I'll just say we are on social media. We do have a YouTube channel where we share client stories. We do change all identifying information. There are no names or anything that would identify our clients, but we retell our stories and our journeys on our YouTube channel. We're on TikTok, Facebook, and then we always ask if you guys want to support our mission. We do strictly run off of donations, 100%. But right there's a screenshot. So if you want to request a search angel, that's what it's going to look like. You just hit that request button.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm very happy to hear that you have successes to share. That's great. Thank you. I really appreciate all the great information. We're all affected by adoptions in some way or NPEs. So I really appreciate knowing that you're in the background helping people make those matches. Thank you.
Yep. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for joining. Please join us in January for our next speaker, and we hope you have a great holiday season. Thanks.